Welcome to the DFO Fantasy Show Team Preview Series. I'm Managing Fantasy Editor of Daily Faceoff.com, Brock Seguin, and today we're going to be covering the Dallas Stars. The Stars have lost in the Western Conference Finals in 3 consecutive seasons and returned a good portion of their core from last year. According to the sportsbooks, the Stars are poised for their 4th straight 100-plus point season, projected as the 5th best team in the NHL and the 3rd best team in the Western Conference at 106 points. This summer, the Stars moved on from Pete DeBoer, hiring Glenn Gulutzan as their new head coach. Gulutzan actually got his first NHL head coaching job with the Stars back in 2011, but most recently was the head coach of the Calgary Flames in 2018. The main question with Gulutzan coming in is, how is he going to handle the lines? We won't get a real idea until training camp, but depending on what he does could have a huge impact in fantasy. Does Robertson, Hintz, Rantanen stick together as a top line? Does Wyatt Johnston get an opportunity there? Only time will tell. Now let's dive into the projections, rankings, and ADPs for this Stars roster, and we'll start up front with Mikko Rantanen, where it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do after a full offseason in Dallas. Last year was a really weird year for the superstar, going to 3 teams, and he still finished with 88 points, 32 goals, 56 assists in 82 games. If his playoff run is any indication, Rantanen could be back to a 100-point player for the 3rd time in 4 years. The only concern I have for Rantanen is the ice time. He required over 22 minutes per game to get to 100 points in 2023 and 2024, but averaged just over 19 minutes in 20 regular season games and a shade over 20 minutes in the playoffs. Still, I think he's a strong late first-round fantasy pick at a very weak position. And then there's Jason Robertson, whose back-to-back 80-point seasons seems somewhat disappointing coming off the heels of a 109-point campaign in 2023. Last year, after a sluggish start through the first 2 months, Robertson finished the year with 67 points, 30 goals, 37 assists in his final 60 games, which is a 41-goal, 51-assist, 92-point pace. With an ADP of 33.5, Robertson is a great draft day value, and you could pair him at the 2-3 turn with someone like Connor McDavid or Nathan MacKinnon and have 2 potential 100-point players right out of the gate. Wyatt Johnston has posted nearly identical results in back-to-back seasons, so his floor of 30 goals and 35 assists feels pretty well established, and he's seemingly getting drafted at that floor. If Gulutzan elects to skate Johnston with Robertson and Rantanen, he could break out in a massive way this year. He is another great ADP value right now. If Gulutzan doesn't move Johnston up, then that means Roope Hintz remains the Stars' number 1 center. And over the last 4 years, Hintz has been as consistent as they come, averaging 33 goals and 37 assists for 70 points per season. With an ADP of 86, he's a floor pick with a limited ceiling that you can pick up as your number 2 center, and I'm fine with that. But I think I would rather load up on wingers or defensemen or goalies in those middle rounds and wait on a center like Mika Zibanejad or Logan Cooley in the double-digit rounds. They're probably going to come close to, if not better than, the numbers that you're going to get from Roope Hintz. The one Stars forward that I'm not targeting at all is Matt Duchene. The draft cost is just too high for a player who could, number 1, slide down the depth chart, and number 2, just had too much good fortune last year to repeat it. He shot a career-high 19.7% and had an on-ice shooting percentage of 14%. He'll be extremely fortunate to duplicate both of those rates and will probably fall back to a 20-goal, 40-assist player like he was in 2024. If he's still floating around in the 12th round, then fine. But right now, he's sandwiched between Kirill Marchenko and Carter Verhaeghe in ADP, and I would much prefer both of those options. Lastly, there's Tyler Seguin, who's currently going undrafted, and he'll probably end up being more of a streamer than a long-term fantasy option this year, but he did have 20 points in his first 19 games before getting hurt in December last year and basically missing the rest of the season. So he's a name to monitor in the fall, see how the depth chart shapes out, and just see what kind of start he's able to get off of. On the blue line, the Stars have 2 absolute studs, Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen. We'll start with Heiskanen. He missed 32 games last year and had his worst point per game output since 2022. He's still probably a guy that approaches double-digit goals and 40 assists this year, but Harley feels like the much better fantasy target, and they're going in a similar ADP. Over the last 2 seasons, Harley is 8th among defensemen in goals with 31 and 17th in points. Almost all of that production, though, has come at even strength, where he's 2nd in even strength goals with 28, only 1 behind Cale Makar, and tied for 11th in even strength points with 72. If Harley ends up being the power play 1 quarterback for the Stars for the majority of 25-26, he could explode into a top 5 fantasy blue liner, but he's currently being drafted as just the number 17th fantasy defenseman in the 7th round, so I absolutely love Harley. One other name to keep in mind in banger leagues is Leon Bichelle. He had an outrageous 230 hits in 56 games in the regular season and playoffs combined last year while playing third pairing minutes. Like, he really only played 11 minutes a night in the playoffs and 14 minutes a night during the regular season. So That's 4 hits per game, which projects over 330 hits over an 82-game schedule. And then you add to the fact that he could see additional ice time in year 2, and he also will provide a little bit more offense than your usual banger-only defenseman like Radko Gudas. So Bichelle is certainly a name to keep an eye on in banger formats only. And then between the pipes, Jake Ottinger remains an elite fantasy option. He's started nearly 70% of the games over the last 3 years and has won 30-plus games in 4 consecutive seasons. During that time, he's 8th in goals against average with a .255 and 9th in save percentage with a .912. My only knock on Ottinger is entering 2025 is the draft cost. While I think it's appropriate at going number 22 overall, I just think you can replicate that production with someone like Sergei Bobrovsky, who's going 27 picks later. There's also the possibility that Casey DeSmith could eat into Ottinger's workload a bit. DeSmith was excellent in his first season in Dallas, and he'll be among the best streaming candidates all season long and is a good number 3 fantasy goalie should anything happen to Ottinger. But I just think that with the draft cost at number 22, you can get similar production a little bit later and still load up on those elite wingers in the second round. I'm now joined by Sam Nestler, beat writer for the Dallas Stars at DLS Sports. Sam, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So obviously we're running out of time here 1 month before the NHL season starts. The Dallas Stars are one of the most interesting teams in the NHL when it comes to fantasy. So many star players and potential breakout candidates. Who is your breakout candidate for the Dallas Stars for 25-26?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to go with Maverick Bourque. Bourque had a really good finish to the year last year. I think he finished with something like 10 or 11 goals eventually, but he didn't get a ton of time. He didn't have a ton of trust with Pete DeBoer. Now this year, for multiple reasons, he's going to get a big chance. Without Pete DeBoer, he's got a new fresh start with Glenn Gulutzan, new coach who probably will give him a better look than Pete DeBoer did last year. And Maverick Bourque kind of understands what the lineup looks like. He has a shot here. Without Mason Marchment, without Mikael Granlund, there's some holes in that offensive front for Dallas, and I think he has a chance to jump up into a top 6 role, and I think that's partially why he switched agents, went to a bigger agency with Wasserman Hockey very recently. I think that's going to play a role in his kind of outlook, thinking he's going to have a big year and he wants a big agency supporting him. So I'm not saying he's going to be a 100-point guy here or anything crazy like that, but I think he's an AHL MVP. He's a two-way player. He's got tons of potential, and he's got a chance here with some holes to really step in and play a top 6 type of role with a very good hockey team.
Speaking of a 100-point player, Mikko Rantanen has been that in the past. And, bit of a weird year for him last year, right? It's almost never happens where a player gets traded twice in 1 year. But really seemed to settle in with the Stars in the playoffs. Was just a beast, kind of the player we're all used to seeing Mikko Rantanen be. Do you think now, full off season in Dallas, fresh start this year, do you think he'll be back to that 100-point player in his first full season with the Stars?
I'm going to say close, because I don't think he's going to be run away and be a 130-point guy or anything crazy like that, because it's a very different team. But I also know the capability, and I know they're going to give him more chance. So last year, if you look, he was playing something like 23 minutes almost a night with Colorado because they just weren't as deep, right? They rolled out McKinnon and Rantanen almost every time they could, whereas here they rolled lines, and he went down almost to 19, almost under 19 minutes per game last year with Dallas. I don't think that Glenn Gulutzan's going to roll lines as much as Pete DeBoer did, but he's not going to go away from what made this team successful either. He's not going to lean heavily on the top 2 and overplay guys too much. So I'm going to say that he's going to be somewhere between 88 and 99 to 100. So like right in that range, maybe jumps up to a 105 if he has a couple really big games, but I don't think he's going to blow it out of the water here and turn into the Colorado Mikko Rantanen again. It's just a very different team here.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern with him when he first went from Colorado to Carolina. Carolina is a team that really likes to roll all 4 lines, and you just knew the playing time wasn't going to be there. Playing time increased, obviously, a little bit for him in the playoffs, but even still, nowhere close to what he saw during his time with the Avs. With the offseason, obviously, some players move in, some players move out. Where does Wyatt Johnston fit in this depth chart? Like, is he just cemented in as their number 2 center? Like, he's put up strong numbers, hasn't really kind of broken through to an elite level just yet. Is that more just being limited behind Rupe Hintz. Last year, he was sometimes their third line center with Matt Duchene, centering, I guess, quote unquote, their second line. Where does Wyatt Johnston fit in this depth chart heading into 25-26?
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me to watch this year because I just wrote an article a couple weeks ago that actually suggested maybe even moving Rope Hintz down the lineup a little bit because he loves to take super fast short shifts, and there's nothing against that. But you can kind of make a case for Wyatt Johnston jumping up into a top line role, maybe giving him a chance with Mikko Rantanen to see what they can do, just because the Rantanen, Robertson, Rupe Hintz line never really clicked that much. And that top line only started really going when they put Granlund up there as the all finish line. And as I mentioned, Granlund's gone. So for me, Wyatt can fit in a few places. I personally hope that they don't just slot him into that third center spot not because it's going to matter. He still played second or third most minutes last year anyway. But because if you go and put Craig Ludwig is stepping into the screen for a second here. But if you do put him in a spot to on a third line, he's going to probably be with some slower line mates, which is basically what he's been. I'm not going to say stuck because none of them are bad players. But you put a guy like Wyatt Johnston who thinks the game is such a high level, and you put him with Jamie Benn and Evgeny Dadonov. It's probably not going to be the most elite line, right? They can do some things, but they're older, slower skaters. Whereas Wyatt, I feel like he would fit in so well with some faster players or some players who could play with the puck a little bit more. So whether that's him actually fitting in on the left with Hintz and Rantanen, which could be a possibility, someone's going to have to play their offside here. They don't have enough lefties to fit their lineup. So either he can play the top line on the left side, or Rope Hintz can slide down to a spot either above or behind Duchene as a center and give Wyatt Johnston that chance. So I think there's a ton of opportunity here, and I truly think Golitzin is going to experiment with it all. And I personally believe Wyatt Johnston will find himself in a top one or two line role, whether that's center or left wing at some point. And personally, that's what I hope to see, because I really want to see what he can do with a lot of skill on his right and left.
Yeah, I think the best news for him is a new coaching staff, because last year almost seems like his floor, given kind of the line mates and where he played most of the season. Still played a lot of ice time, as you said, but the new coaching staff coming in could unlock a little bit more for Wyatt Johnston. The Stars obviously have a great luxury in having both Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley on the back end. Which one of them do you expect starts on power play one? Which one do you expect maybe finishes the year with the better offensive numbers? I know I'm putting you in a tough spot here because they're both fantastic, but which one would be your choice there?
Yeah, so this was a big topic last year especially when Miro went down, obviously, but even before that, they started putting Thomas Harley out a little bit on power play one, and he's just a better player at that role. They both bring a lot. Miro's great on the power play as well, but Harley's just more dangerous. He shoots the puck, he gets it through traffic, he's able to get pucks to the net. He's a little more nimble to make moves on the blue line, whereas Heiskanen's more of a pass-first guy. Elite defender, but a pass-first guy. He's going to have a shot and pass it up for a better option. And I think sometimes that takes away from what a power play needs to be, because when your power play is not going, you need to simplify. And if you're overpassing, that's what Dallas did a lot last year, you can get even further into a hole. So I'm going to say Thomas Harley's start is on power play one, with Miro on power play two. And I think it's a no-brainer that Harley finishes with more points this year. I think he's going to have it. I want to call it a breakout year. It's not a breakout year. He's already had his breakout years the past 2 years, but in even further breakout year, he's finds a way to score goals in big moments. I don't expect any less than 3 overtime winners from him, like he's been doing the past couple seasons. So I'm going to say Thomas Harley for both of those answers.
And the final thought here is between the pipes. Jake Oettinger obviously gets paid like an elite goalie, but he's been closer to a 905 goalie in basically his last 120 regular season and playoff games. Can he get back to that elite form that we saw in those first 3 seasons? It's been a bit of a hot topic. Just, he's on a great team. He can win a lot of games, but the splits have been pretty middling. What do you expect from Oettinger this year?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, he can. And I think the main thing is actually going to be the coaching change, and not because of, Glenn Golitzin supporting him any differently or anything like that. We know what happened with DeBoer at the end of the year with Oettinger. We don't have to get into it, but Glenn Golitzin watched this team a lot, played against this team a lot with Edmonton. He knows exactly how to beat the Dallas Stars. And pretty much the way to beat the Dallas Stars is get them scrambling in their own end, because they played a man-to-man type of defense under Pete DeBoer. And if you watch at times, you got like Esa Lindell's up at the point chasing a defenseman. You got a small Wyatt Johnston trying to fight off a big forward in front of his own net. It just doesn't lead to, if it's quick and you pressure and you take the puck away, the system works well. If you let the team get into a cycle and control, that's when you start getting scrambly and getting in trouble. And that leads to wide open chances. And I think the new system, it's not going to change a ton, but I think it's going to go more back towards a traditional type of defense where you're able to pass guys off a little bit more and stay in the positions you're comfortable in. I think Dallas can become a Vegas, become a Carolina, become a Florida, where you end up blocking out the middle of your ice so well that you give your goalie a chance to see pucks. I mean, Jake Ottinger, when he sees it, he's probably going to save it, right? For the most part. So if you let him see the shots and you box out when they're in front, they were horrible at boxing out last year in front of their own net. Every time the puck was loose, there were 2 or 3 forwards from the other team around him, and the defensemen were just allowing them to get pushed right back into the crease. If they can box out a little bit better and play that safer, if you want to use that word, defensive system, it should allow Ottinger a better chance to see pucks, and Casey DeSmith to see pucks and then have the chance to control a rebound, because he's not the best at controlling his own rebounds. When he's feeling it, he's good at it. When he's a little scrambly, it can bounce off him. But if he has just that extra second, knowing that, Esa Lindell's to his left and he's blocking out that forward, he has a chance to cover that puck up and get a reset. And I think that's going to help a lot. The other thing of it is he's got to play the right amount of games. Funny enough, when he played over, he played 63, let's say, in his career high, that was his best regular season, but his worst playoffs. So he tires out when he plays a lot of games. And as much as he wants to play 82, the Stars need to find a way to play him maybe 50 to 55 so that he's still rested all the way through, especially because he's expected to go to Italy for Team USA and either back up and be practicing hard or play a bunch of games there if he is able to kind of jump or split with Connor Hellebuyck. So I think those are the 2 keys. I would say this is going to be a big year for him because of those things.
Yeah, and they obviously have the luxury of Casey DeSmith. I mean, he looked awesome for them last year, and they don't need to necessarily ride Ottinger into the ground. So, Sam, I think you convinced me on Ottinger, a re-breakout year, if you will. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck. Enjoy the last little bit of the offseason.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.